My name's Star Bradley, and today I'm presenting to you on putting the free in freedom to read. I did start the recording. So I want to thank SJSU for being a founding partner for this presentation and for this conference. So like I said, my name's Star Bradley. I am a research and instruction librarian at Montana State University in Bozeman, Montana. And I just want to thank everyone for coming today and letting me talk to you about a banned books giveaway event that we did at our library last year. So last year, as I was watching the news every day, I kept seeing an increasing number of articles and news stories about book bannings across the country and books being challenged in school libraries and public libraries all around the country. And it just seemed like every day I was seeing more and more stories about this. And I just kept thinking about it. And I kept saying to myself, what can I do? What can my library do to try and help combat this? Like, what can we do as an academic library to help people understand not only what book bans and book challenges are, but why it's important that we don't let them happen and we try and fight them as much as possible. And it occurred to me, wouldn't it be awesome if we could just give away free banned books? Like, how great would it be if we could just have an event at our library where we just gave away all of these books that had been banned and challenged across the country? So I decided to try and do just that. So I wanted to make it free. I wanted to put the free back into freedom to read. So as I started thinking about this event and how I could do it and the logistics of it, one of the first things that I thought of was my library administration is going to want to know why. It's not going to be enough for me just to say, I want to do this because I think it's important or because just because. I needed to have some reasons. And not only did I need reasons, but I needed funding. And as part of that funding, I was going to need the reasons why I wanted to do this even more. So one of the big reasons that I wanted to do this was because I think it's important for people to see themselves represented in the books that they read. And a lot of books are banned and challenged for reasons of, for LGBTQ plus reasons, for other race reasons, there's so many reasons why books are banned and challenged. And so I thought it was really important that we take this idea and try and make it happen. So I was speaking to our outreach and events librarian, and I was like, hey, I have this idea, but I don't know what my next step is. I need to get funding. What can I do to get funding? And her genius response was, why don't you go to the Friends of the Library group? They have money and they love stuff like this. And I went, oh my gosh, Friends of the Library has money. Of course they do. Why didn't I think of that myself? Well, we can't always think of everything ourselves. Sometimes we need help. And this time I needed help. So the outreach librarian and I created a proposal to ask our Friends of the Library group for money to support our event. So we had to write a formal proposal to them asking for money, telling them again why we thought this event would be important, how we wanted to run the event, and we told them that we wanted to increase visibility and education around banned books and position the library and our friends group as unbiased providers of information. And I think that's a really key thing that people need to understand is that libraries need to be unbiased providers of information. It's not the library's job to tell people what they should and should not read. And I know that I'm speaking to a group of probably mostly librarians, so I would assume that most of you agree with me. It's not our job to tell people what to read. We can make suggestions to people and we can tell people, hey, this is a really great book. I liked it. You might like it. But it's not our job to tell people what they can and cannot read. It's our job to provide as many diverse viewpoints and books as possible to our users. And so that's what we were trying to do. So as we wrote our proposal to Friends of the Library, we decided to ask them for $1,500. I don't know where we got 1,500 from. It was just basically an arbitrary number. I think mostly because we weren't sure how much we could ask for. We weren't sure how much we really were going to need. This was all new. So we didn't know anything. I mean, we were inventing this from scratch. So we asked for $1,500 thinking this is going to be a great amount of money. Like we're going to be able to do so much with $1,500. And I'm sure a lot of you are sitting there thinking $1,500 is not a lot of money, Star. That's not going to go very far. And you're right. It didn't go as far as I thought it would. But you know what? It was a start. So as part of the proposal, one of the things we wanted to make sure we did was give Friends of the Library the credit that they deserved for supporting the event and for funding the event. So we decided to create a book plate to put inside each and every book that they paid for. Well, that was a great idea. However, I would say that if you're going to put a book plate in a bunch of books, make sure you have the manpower for this. That took a lot longer than we thought it would. One thing that I thought of as we were sticking all these stickers in our 250 plus books was, it would be a lot easier if we just had a stamp. We didn't have a stamp. Maybe if we ever did this again, we would get a stamp. It would be easier. But the book plates actually looked really nice in the book. And as these books are passed around, other people will see that book plate and say, oh, wow, the Friends of the MSU Library supports banned and challenged books, and this book came from them. That's great. And that's what we wanted for our friends group, to have that kind of appreciation given to them. So during Banned Books Week, we also had some book displays up in the library. We had some coordinated displays in our library. As you walk in the front doors of our library, there's a glass display case, and we change out that display roughly every month. So during Banned Books Week, we had a display up highlighting the top 10 ALA banned and challenged books for last year, and then some reasons why things were banned and information on, just bans and challenges in general. And then in what we call our browse section, which is in front of our coffee shop, we have some small mobile bookcases that we move around and use for different purposes. And our browse collection is a collection of popular fiction and popular books that people can just grab and go as they come in the library. And so in that section, we had a book display with, again, the top 10 ALA banned and challenged books from last year, and then also a selection of other books that had been banned and challenged throughout the years. On each of those books, we added a book wrap saying that it had been banned or challenged and why. So we put the reasons on each book as well. We wanted to highlight that books are banned for lots of reasons, not just one or two reasons, that books are banned for many, many reasons. So now we needed to get the word out about our event. So we tried to do some marketing. One of the things we did was put the event in the university calendar, university events calendar. We also added it to the university email newsletter that goes out twice a week. And we put it in our library newsletter that we display all over the library. And that library newsletter we call Library Lingo, and we hang it up in different places in the library to include the bathrooms where we have what we like to call a captive audience. So we have discovered that having that library lingo in our bathrooms is a tremendous marketing tool, because people don't really have anything else to do when they're in the bathroom but read this newsletter. So we actually get a lot of people coming to events because they've seen it in our library lingo, which is pretty fun. We also promoted the event on our library social media. So as we were continuing planning, one of the things we realized was we didn't have enough money to buy tons of copies of 10 different books. So we decided to highlight 5 books. Whoever just said Cougar Commode, that's amazing. I love that. So we decided to highlight 5 books. And we selected these books because we wanted to highlight diverse reasons for banning, diverse viewpoints, and diverse authors. So we looked at the top 10 list and we selected 5 books. And one of the things that we also looked at was how available were these books and how much did they cost? Because there were a couple of books that we wanted to select off the top 10 list that we just couldn't get. So we ended up picking these 5 books, which are All Boys Aren't Blue by George M. Johnson, Out of Darkness by Ashley Hope Perez, The Bluest Eye by Toni Morrison, The Hate You Give by Angie Thomas, and This Book is Gay by Juno Dawson. We bought 25 brand new copies of each of these 5 books, and then we took the rest of the money and went on a book hunt. So we went to garage sales, thrift shops. We looked at online used booksellers. We looked in little free libraries. We looked everywhere we could think of to find used copies of any book that had ever been banned. So we were now branching out from our 5 selected books and just trying to buy any book that had ever been banned or challenged ever. And we found some really great deals. We happened to go to a thrift shop one day and it just randomly happened to be their half price day. So we were able to get an entire basket of books for like $10, which was amazing. And what was even more fun is when we went to the checkout, the cashier happened to be an MSU student. And we were telling her, oh, yeah, we're librarians at MSU and we're doing this book giveaway event. And she went, oh my God, the book giveaway? I already heard about that and I've got it on my calendar. So that was a really positive thing for us. I also happened to be driving down a street in town one day and I saw a sign for a book garage sale. So I stopped and I was looking, and they had tons of books out. And I was looking through them and I'm collecting like all these books. And the guy's like, do you need a box? And I was like, that'd be great. He's like, what do are you doing something special? So I told him what I was doing, that I was a librarian at MSU. We were doing a book giveaway. We're trying to get as many banned books as we can. And he was like, oh my God, that's amazing. And I ended up with a box of books for $5. So, I mean, if you tell people what you're doing, they want to help. So that was another really positive thing that happened. It was just great. The event itself was a huge success. The turnout was amazing. We gave away every single book we had. We had just over 250 books and we gave them all away. The event was slated to last 2 hours. We ran out of books in 45 minutes. The way we had it set up, we had 2 folding tables, one with our 5 selected books. And for each book, we had a little display sign saying what the title of the book was, what place it had on the ALA top 10 list, and why it had been banned or challenged. And then obviously we couldn't fit 25 copies of each book on the table. So all the extras were in boxes behind the table. And then we had a second table set up that had a couple of gift baskets that we were giving away as essentially door prizes for free. So people could just enter to win those. And they had some banned books in them and some banned books, scarves and notebooks and t-shirts. So people were very excited about that. The other thing we had on that second table was Dear Banned Author postcards. So I had been looking at the ALA website to try and get ideas for this. And one of the things they had on their website was this thing called Banned Author postcards. And I thought, wow, that'd be really fun. I think people would really enjoy writing postcards to their favorite banned author and telling them why they loved the book that had been banned, why it was important to them, what it meant to them. So we had that set up. We had, different colored pens out there so people could write on the postcards. Unfortunately, nobody really took advantage of the postcards. So that was kind of a bummer, but they loved everything else. We also had 2 carts next to those tables with all of the used books on them. And again, not everything fit on the cart. So we had books in the back. And as books were being taken away, we were adding books. And when I say we were adding books, it was fast and furious because, like I said, the event only lasted 45 minutes. But we had a great time. One thing that we ended up doing was explaining to people why the books were banned or challenged. So as people were coming up and grabbing books, they were asking, why was this banned? Why was this challenged? And the night before the event, I had this epiphany and I was like, oh my goodness, what if somebody asks us why a book was banned or challenged? We know why the top 10 were banned and challenged, but what about the rest of them? So I spent several hours the night before the event staying up late looking for reasons for why each book we were giving away had been banned or challenged. I would not recommend waiting to the last minute to do that. If you're going to do something like this, I would definitely do that from the beginning as you're collecting the books, but it was high payoff. As we were giving away the books, students kept asking, and we were able to tell them why each of these books had been banned and challenged. And they were so surprised by some of the reasons, because some of the reasons were just silly. I mean, for example, Hop on Pop was challenged in Canada because somebody thought it was promoting violence against dads. And if anybody's ever read the Dr. Seuss book, Hop on Pop, you know what the book is saying is, no, please do not hop on pop. So Fortunately, it wasn't actually removed from the library, it was just challenged. But that was one of the things that we were able to tell people as we were handing out these books. And some of the other reasons that I added to the list were just very simple, just things like religious viewpoint, sex, drugs, LGBTQ plus reasons, unsuited to age group. Just, it was very simple. The other thing that students asked was they asked us for recommendations about the books, which I was not expecting either. I don't know why I didn't think of that, but I should have. People were asking us if we had read the books and what we thought of them and which ones they should take. So fortunately, between everybody who was volunteering at the table, we had read most of the books. And we were able to let people know what they were about. But one thing I am going to do in the future is make sure I've read all of the top 10 banned books ahead of the time. And the other reactions we were getting from students were overwhelmingly positive. Students were saying things like, I've had this on my calendar for 2 weeks. Thank you so much for doing this. A lot of students were coming up and saying, these are free, like really free. I can just take one. Yeah, you can just take one. Can I take more than one? Absolutely, take more than one. We had students walking away with arms of books, which was good and bad. It was great that they wanted to take so many books, but it was also kind of bad because I was like, oh, we're going to run out of books. We're going to run out of books. And we did. But I would much rather run out of books in 45 minutes than have books left over. Students were telling us about books they loved when they were children that were on the list. We had one kid take a Captain Underpants book that we had and say, this was banned, but this book was my childhood. And probably one of my favorite comments, which I wouldn't say was a negative or a positive comment, was a student who came up and grabbed a Twilight book and looked at me and said, I'm taking this book because when girls see me reading it, they'll think I'm emotionally available. And that just made me laugh. So it was fun interacting with the students. It was fun handing them books, and they just loved it. So lessons learned from this event: have more books than you think you're going to need. 250 books did not even last an hour. So either shorten your event, have more books, but know that 250 books went in 45 minutes. And we're not a huge campus. So our student population is about 16,000 students. So we're big, but we're not, 50,000 students. Have that list of reasons why the books were challenged. That was high payoff. And I was surprised at how many students wanted to know that. At one point, I felt like, I don't know what I felt like, but I was standing there with this sheet of paper with the book reasons, and people were just like grouped around me, throwing book titles at me. Why was this one challenged? Why was this one challenged? Why was this one challenged? And fortunately, I was able to stand there and tell them the Lorax was challenged and banned in Northern California because it was anti-logging. There were many things like that. And then the Dear Banned Author postcard, that was a total bust, unfortunately. I wouldn't do that again. I thought it was going to be great. I thought it was a really cool idea, but students really just didn't seem to want to do it. So unfortunately, I would not do that part again. But overall, it was an incredible event. It made me feel good. It made the students feel good. We didn't get any negative comments. There were two, I guess, negative comments. One, a student came up to the table, looked at the 5 books from the top 10 list and went, are all these books gay? And I said, no, actually, they're not. And then I pointed out the ones that weren't banned for those reasons. And he went, oh, okay. And he grabbed a book and he walked away. And then somebody else came up and started pointing at the books and going, I read that book, it was terrible. I read that book, it was terrible. I read that book, it was terrible. And I'm like, hey, that's okay. You're entitled to your opinion. That's the beauty of the First Amendment. And that's one of your freedoms. And then he walked away with a book. So that was great too. Anyway, thank you so much for coming to this talk today. It's been a pleasure to speak to you. Thank you for your time. And I am happy to answer any questions. I see that there have been some in the chat, but I haven't been able to keep up with them. So I will go back now. And oh, there's a lot.
Hi, Star. Yes, the first question that I see also is it says, how long, from Alyssa Fernandez from SJSU asks, how long did it take to collect enough books for this event? And about how many in total did you have?
We had just over 250 books, and we started collecting the books in August, and the event was the last week of September. So about 2 months.
And Angela asks, was there a limit to how many the patrons could take?
No, I maybe should have limited them because some people were walking away with a lot, but I just didn't want to put any limits of any kind on anyone because it just seemed to go against what the event was about.
And Susan asks, are you going to do this again?
I hope so. I'd like to.
And Lucy asked, she apologized, sorry if I missed this. What age level was this event focused on?
So we're an academic library. So this was for university students, so 18 to 22 roughly.
And Alyssa asked, did you experience people taking books who were opposed to banned books in an effort to prevent others from taking them?
I was a little worried about that, but no, it didn't seem to be that way.
Cheryl asked, did you have the author address or addresses prepared in advance for the postcard program?
No, and I'm glad we didn't, because like I said, nobody actually filled them out. So I'm glad we didn't spend any time on that. We were going to get them afterwards.
And E. Crickley asks, would a list of emails for fan mail for authors be better given the more technological we are now?
That's very possible. Maybe.
Marianne asks, I was late to this talk. Can someone tell me how you gathered the books and where did you get them?
Sure. So the new books we bought from online booksellers, and then the used books we got from used booksellers online and also from thrift shops, garage sales, little free libraries, and local used bookstores. Basically, anywhere we could find used books, we got them.
Nancy asks, have you thought of staging your next event using the students who came and have them exchange their books and talk about them?
No, but that is a fantastic idea. Thank you.
Trisha asks, what was the one part you said you wouldn't do again?
Oh, we wouldn't do the banned author postcards again. We would just do the book giveaway.
And Deborah asks, what titles were banned in Canada as well?
Oh, the one I was referring to was Hop on Pop by Dr. Seuss, and it wasn't actually banned, it was just challenged.
And so far, those were all the questions that I saw.
Fantastic.
Oh, and another question. Laura asked, she said, I'm an MLIS student. I am focusing on academic libraries with my degree. Do you have any advice for an academic library student when it comes to how to be an advocate against book bans in a higher ed setting?
Be loud. um, just make sure your voice is heard. Being in an academic setting, we're in a very fortunate position that we don't actually have to deal with book bans and challenges very often. According to ALA, the number of book bans that happen in academic libraries is like 1% or less of the total bans and challenges that are happening throughout libraries in the country. So we're in a very fortunate position. And I kind of feel like because of that, we should be louder. We should be sticking up for people who can't do events like this and who don't have support from their community or their government or their school board or their library board. Um, and listen to your students. The students will tell you what they want, and students wanted free books.
Susan asked, how much money would you ask your friends of the library for next time?
I would double it. I would ask for 3,000.
And so far, those were all of the questions that were submitted. Oh, one other question. Could you have a voter registration drive as part of this program?
Another great idea. I hadn't thought of that either. There's so many ways to tie in other things to this event. And obviously what we did was just the tip of the iceberg. There's so many things that we could do or could do in the future. And, basically everybody just, we do what we can and try to do it well.
And a new question, how many books would you want to give out next time?
All of them. Um, as many as I possibly could. I would say probably we did 250 in 45 minutes. And my biggest problem with 250 books was it's hard to move 250 books around. Um, but I would love to have double that number.
And Marianne asked, how many library staff were involved in this project?
I'd have to count. So myself, the outreach and events librarian, our entire outreach and events committee, which is about 10 people. And then we had a couple of volunteers from Friends of the Library, and we had one student employee. So probably 10 to 15 people.
How many books would you want to gather for next time?
Um, I know I already said all of them, but I would shoot for probably 500.
And unless there's any more questions, that's all I see.
Well, thank you all so much. I appreciate your time. And it was a great event, and I'm very happy to share it. And if you have questions, um, I think I forgot to go to the last slide with my email address. My email address is star.bradley@montana.edu. If you have questions, feel free to email me and I'd be happy to answer them.
And you have a lot of thank you and great sessions, which I do agree.
Thank you so much. All right, I am going to stop the recording.